room keys and alibis. My name is Grant and I am paid to make other people's secrets look intentional. I produce corporate galas, the kind with lighting that flatters bad decisions, with centerpieces that pretend not to overhear the table. My toolkit is HDMI cables, names I pronounce as if I like them, and a pocket map of exits. I tell people where to stand so the cameras forgive them. Usually the night forgives me back. I live with Mason. He writes copy for a lifestyle magazine that sells honesty like a candle scent. He comes home with ink on his wrists and a smirk that means he hates the headline his editor loves. He says he fell for me because I never ask for quiet. I fell for him because he never calls kindness an angle. Our apartment looks down on a small square of river that never quite admits what it carries out to sea. On the fridge, we keep a notepad titled Say in Daylight, because somewhere along the way we learned that truth told after midnight is just weather. The Tuesday the job was smooth and I wasn't. I was backstage at the Beaumont Hotel, hand on a comm headset, watching 100 rented smiles try not to chip. The keynote had landed, the CEO had survived, the band was pretending their set list was spontaneous. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the lock screen because habit is a religion. The joint email Mason and I use for deliveries blinked. Thank you for your stay, Beaumont Hotel. Time, 12-13-304. Points, 200 added. I didn't call. Our rule for anything that isn't yet a disaster is 2 loops around the block before nomming it. My block was the service corridor from ballroom to loading dock and back, the floor polished to the kind of honesty that shows you your posture. I walked it twice, counting the sconces. The ice machine coughed the only sentence an ice machine knows. You already know. Mason came home smelling like printer heat, and the lemon cleaner the office swears is optimism. He dropped his toad on the chair he never uses, kissed the air, then my cheek, then the small burn on my wrist from a gobo that pretended it wasn't hot. The third kiss is always calibrated with him, and saw the notepad turn to blank. I held up my phone like a glass of water I wasn't sure he wanted. He didn't audition confusion. Yes, he said, palm to the back of the dining chair like he trusted wood more than nouns. Conference room at the office was booked. The editor wanted proofs signed at noon. The ad director suggested a daytime room at the Beaumont. He looked up. I went. With Luca. Luca shoots campaigns that make lies look like heritage. Mason admires him openly, and in a different room I would too. We worked, he said. It felt good to be possible under a light I didn't rent. There are currents you respect because they're not yours. We need a clear table, I said. Tonight, no phones, no witty detours. I'm a man with a superstition. When I can name a thing, I can survive it. I pulled the task lamp to the center of our small kitchen table, laid a sheet of white paper, set 2 tumblers of water like a ritual nobody taught me. In thick marker I wrote, "One truth, one want, no asterisks." Mason set both hands down. His fingers were warm with ink. "My truth," he said, voice softer than the headline he would have written, "is I liked being looked at like I was still becoming." "My truth," I said, building my sentence like rigging, no slack, no snap, "is I'm not afraid you slept with him. I'm afraid you'll write the final caption somewhere I can't read it. My want, to want you now, not the coffee table version we both know how to fake." "My truth," he said, "is I want to be seen when I'm still rough draft and coffee, not only when the font forgives me. My want, that you want me halfway, fingerprints and all." We added a line to the notepad. 1 hour without screens each night, 1 sentence on the table before bed. The first week looked like notes you leave in someone's shoe. Kiss me without footnotes. Say no without a pitch deck. Hotel emails stop at the door. The hotel, polite as a debt collector, wrote again. double points all month. Marketing is a metronome that refuses to hear rhythm. I hid in work. I moved power drops so nobody would trip over their own importance. I told the lighting guy to kiss the florals but not marry them. I applied gaff tape where conversation failed. Between cues, I scribbled on the back of a run-of show. Remember water, not the kind melting in the highball glass, the kind you drink when grief makes the mouth reckless. After shows, Beaumont staff leave behind a smell of velvet and electricity. I stayed late later than I needed, tightening truss that didn't need tightening. When I finally went home, Mason was asleep on the sofa with a draft open on his laptop. The headline read, "On Honesty and Other Marketing Myths." The first sentence read, "Tell the truth, then decide what to do with it." I closed the lid as gently as I could. Days pretended to be cooperative. A client asked if we could make the stage younger, like light was Botox. A caterer confessed she had a crush on my schedule because it never yelled. A florist explained to me that peonies are like bad moods. They open when they want to, and the trick is to get out of the way. On Sunday, Mason taped gray paper to the living room wall like he was installing weather and said, "Let's take the early ferry to the outer beach. Arbitrary day. Late return." I said yes like a person grateful for a scheduled outage. We went, 2 hours of noise that belonged to no one. On the beach, gulls practiced their vocabulary and I practiced forgiving my instincts. Mason made a pillow out of his jacket and leaned back until the sky had to pay attention. We ate a sandwich that believed too much in salt, then another that believed in mercy. Back home he wrote, "I want to be there when you congratulate yourself." I wrote, "I want to congratulate you without checking the room diagram first." It felt like both a joke and a correction. The magazine offered Mason a 3-day micro-residency at that same concrete studio that pretends warmth, hotel included. "I want to go for the work, not the soap," he said. "I also want to prove I know how to come back." We made a protocol on the back of an envelope. Nightly voice memo, "Morning, I'm here, no poetry." He left with a reasonable backpack, a shirt I forgive the world for, and a single-serve citrus soap whose font was nicer than it meant. I lived like a theater between strikes, orderly, alert, one bad idea away from a dropped line. The second night I sat alone on the edge of the ballroom stage, while the staff vacuumed confetti out of carpet and wanted very much to undo something you can't. The ballroom, which usually forgives everything, forgave me too, with a sigh you could mistake for air conditioning. Voice memo 1 arrived. "The room doesn't smell like anything, it's almost sad." Voice memo 2, "I'm here," with a blurry photo of a white wall that breathed better than we had. Voice memo 3 didn't come for hours. I rearranged our apartment like I was hunting a frequency. Jealousy has the mechanics of a stuck latch. Then the text lit up in blue, "I'm making my no." I told them I have someone. I said I'm not interested in being profitable for anything else. On the third morning, I woke to the smell of something that wanted to be oranges. Mason was there, soap on the counter, his hair antagonizing gravity. He looked like a headline he would never let anyone write. "Drawer," he said, tapping the soap. "Drawer," I said. "The drawer for things we laugh about without getting hurt." It was a small ceremony, and I was the priest who forgot the lines and then remembered them just in time. On the table he wrote, "Let's learn something useless together." We tried whistling in 2 parts. Catastrophe first, air colliding with its own optimism. Then 30 seconds of accidental harmony, 2 lines agreeing to share the same breath, envy on break. I don't want to be heroic, I want to be exact. Some evenings I open the archived hotel email the way you tongue a repaired tooth. Some mornings Mason wakes with a light I don't recognize and I can see that the day tuned his frequencies. Sometimes the table looks like a bric-a-brac held together by tape. Sometimes it looks like a music stand waiting for breath. We sit, we talk low, we let our hands have no agenda. But here's the truth you asked for when you said intrigue. The Beaumont has more mirrors than necessary, and mirrors have opinions. 3 months before that Tuesday, on a night I was not proud of, I had stood in one of those mirrors with Adrian, the client whose galas make the news even when they should not. He has a laugh you can hang a chandelier from. We had a room with a door that closed softly and a view of the river practicing being a witness. It lasted the length of a mistake, which is to say long enough to think you chose it. When it was done, I folded my tie like I was a man who deserved neatness. I promised myself a sermon I never gave. I did not put that on the table the night Mason came home with Harbor Suites points. My hands knew the word hypocrisy and refused to write it. I built my moral case like a lighting plot and then stared into the dark where a straight line should have been. We get to the sharpness now because stories like this owe you one. 2 weeks after the soap in the drawer, another Beaumont gala. Same river, same chandeliers. Only this time Mason was a guest. The magazine was covering the event's philanthropy with a straight face. He wore the shirt that forgives the world. Adrian found me side stage with a glass in his hand and the easy smile of a man whose name buys forgiveness wholesale. "Grant," he said, "because this is where you learn my first name, the one I give to clients. You make the room breathe. I owe you a toast." "You owe me a check," I said, not unkindly. "Both," he said, and tilted his head toward the hallway as if gravity had tips. 2 minutes. I want to fix the seating chart language while we have lungs. The hallway was the same hallway as far as hallways go. He started to speak. I started to nod. We both made the kind of mistake you can only make when the last one didn't punish you sufficiently. It didn't go far. My back found the wall and remembered discipline. His mouth found my neck and remembered entitlement. But it went far enough that when Mason turned the corner because he was looking for a quote and not a life, he saw a picture that didn't require context. He did not raise his voice. Neither did I. He said my name, the real one, and Adrian's name in a tone that made the chandelier rethink its life choices. The hallway became a courtroom without furniture. "I don't need your explanation," Mason said, then took a breath like a man who will listen anyway. "But you are going to offer it because that's what daylight is for." I wished, very briefly and very sincerely, that the ceiling would fall delicately upon me. 3 months ago, I said, a room like this with him, once. I didn't tell you because I wanted to keep the version of me that has a future. "You kept a version," Mason said, eyes on the wall that had my back, not the one that had us in it. Adrian excused himself with the grace of a man who never buys his own punishment. Mason and I stood there with our hands empty. We were two men in a story with too many titles. We did not fix it that night. We did not perform heroics for the security cameras. We went home to our kitchen with the notepad that doesn't lie, and the paper we taped to the table felt thinner than any we'd used before. "You can leave," Mason said, "or you can stay and we can do honesty at noon tomorrow like adults." "I will be here," I said, and meant it in every tense. I slept on the sofa because clichés exist for a reason. I woke to the sound of the river practicing forgiveness against the bulkhead, to the smell of coffee supervised by a man who needs something to do with his hands. At noon, we sat at the table like you sit in the kind of church that doesn't make promises it can't keep. "My truth," I said first because I owed the order of things, "is I'm capable of cowardice dressed as charm. My want is to spend the rest of the time I get choosing the opposite." "My truth," Mason said, "is I can love someone who disappointed me more than once. My want is to see if the disappointment is finished and the loving is." We decided to try. Try is a verb you can calibrate. It does not absolve, it starts. 3 days later, a storm knocked half the neighborhood dark. I spent 14 hours coaxing the Beaumont's generator into remembering its job and apologizing to a ballroom that was better at forgiveness than I am. When I came home, the notepad on the fridge had 2 new lines in Mason's handwriting. Say the hard thing before the hard thing says you. Keep the skyline where you can see it. The little string of lights under the plexi flickered once, as if approving. Outside, a tug eased along the river without making anyone change their plans. Somewhere in the substation on the ridge, a transformer hummed its old yes-no and meant both. And the switches of the city, if you'll believe me, decided, for one night only, to line themselves without complaint.